Good morning, I'm Dan DeRosa with 19 News, coming to you from our digital desk. We're about to take you to the sentencing of a former East Cleveland police chief. He was facing 24 counts on an indictment, everything from theft in office as a police chief to, we can get to some of the others, 2 grand theft, 2 theft in office, 2 additional money laundering, 3 passing bad checks, 1 tampering with records, 6 incomplete, false, fraudulent returns, tax returns, and it looks like they've gone back into the judges, and there is Scott Gardner right there in the black suit. He was fired by the East Cleveland Police, by the East Cleveland City Council. Let's be honest, he was police chief when dozens of officers were investigated at the federal level for their interaction with individuals who were being arrested. Several of those officers have already pleaded guilty and have been sentenced to prison. Some of them were stealing from traffic stops. They were stealing cash, guns, and drugs. It was just like you see out of a movie, only this was hurting an already impoverished area like East Cleveland, and this was the ringleader right here that you're looking at. Scott Gardner was the police chief. He owned a business, and even though he was facing 24 counts. Let's remember, he had been indicted. His trial starts. They go through that first day of opening arguments, and at the end of the day, he and his attorney decided, well, after what we've heard in court today, we're going to go ahead and take that plea deal where instead of facing those 24 charges, he pleads guilty to 1 count of collecting and failing to remit. Now, some of that may be explained in court. I'm not a legal expert, but to me that sounds like something to do with his side business that he had, and he will no longer be facing those charges for theft in office, 2 counts of grand theft, 2 counts of money laundering, 3 counts of passing bad checks, 1 count of tampering with records, 6 incomplete, false, fraudulent tax returns. Let's get you live into the court as the judge has started the proceedings.
By multiple assistant prosecuting attorneys, but I think lead counsel in this case is Miss Samantha Stoll.
Dan DeRosa with 19 News. We apologize. You can see we're having a little bit of problem with our shot locking up here in court. We'll get this figured out. Just stand by with us. Dan DeRosa with 19 News here. We're having a bit of a technical problem here. We should be watching the sentencing of former East Cleveland Police Chief Scott Gardner. We're going to work on our issues here. Remember, East Cleveland, the police department there, riddled with, let's just say it, bad officers, bad actors, dozens of them facing charges. Quite a few of them have already either pleaded guilty or gone through trial and are sitting in prison. Everything from falsifying records. There was one case where a friend of an officer needed a report written. It was completely false. 2 officers in that case wrote up 2 fake reports and accepted money for those reports. Other officers were accused and found guilty of stealing evidence, cash, drugs, guns at traffic stops. Some of those weapons were even found in officers' homes when the FBI started investigating, when the federal investigators took charge of the case, taking them on raids. and finding guns in the homes of officers that belonged to individuals that they had pulled over. It was only when, and I can remember one particular sentencing where a man who had been, and we've lost our shot there completely, we'll try and get this back. There was one case where the victim of one of these officers came into court. He was in prison orange, jail orange, because he had been indicted and found guilty on another charge, but they brought him in to give his victim impact statement. It was one of the first times that I had ever seen an individual in jail orange in court as a victim, and he requested that his face not be shown. We granted that request through the court. And that victim talked about the day he was pulled over by that East Cleveland police officer and the items that he had on him. And then when it went to court, when it went to trial, when the evidence was looked at, he admitted that like half the money was there, if half the money. And some of the weapons and drugs were gone and missing. This is a police department that has been in the headlines for a number of years here because of what was going on. We had seen when the prosecutor, Michael O'Malley, held that news conference approximately a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, brought out an incredible amount of body cam video from officers making arrests that were excessive, to say the least, in these cases. Guns being drawn on individuals who were already laying on the ground with their arms out, tasers being used with individuals on the ground, not resisting. We've all seen videos where you have to make a judgment call. Was there resisting? Wasn't there? In a number of the cases out of East Cleveland, it was very clear for the majority of people who watch those videos that these were individuals who got down on the ground on their own, put their arms out, were waiting to be cuffed, and were either kicked, punched, or tased in that process. So we've already seen a number of officers convicted for their roles in what was just a collapsing police department. Now, was it everyone in the East Cleveland department? No, there were several individuals who were doing policing the right way. They were upstanding officers, detectives that had worked in East Cleveland for a number of years. But it became, according to prosecutor Michael O'Malley, a culture of bad behavior. That's what the prosecutor called it when all of the indictments were laid out. I think what we're going to have to do here is we may have our technical problem may be inside the courtroom. So I think what we're going to have to do here, we're going to wait, give it one more second here, but otherwise we may have to quite literally pull the plug on this sentencing, and you'll have to tune in to our newscasts throughout the day to find out. We truly apologize. We bring you a number of these all the time, and very rarely does this happen where we lose our feed out of that courtroom. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up. We will have coverage. As you see, our camera is in the courtroom. It's just the live feed that's coming out of there. So we will have a complete wrap up on the sentencing of the former East Cleveland Police Chief Scott Gardner. Again, was facing 24 charges. The trial had started that day. Opening arguments had gone, and all of a sudden Gardner and his attorney decided, well, we better take the plea deal. So instead of going through the entire trial on those 24 cases, he pleaded guilty to one count of collecting and failing to remit, a charge that had to do with a side business held by Scott Gardner. Going to wait just one more second here. And it does appear we are going to be at a loss here. Make sure you tune into our news at 11 o'clock today. I'll be anchoring that. We'll have the very latest on this sentencing and all of the day's news and weather. March Madness starts today, so a lot of our newscasts will be interrupted by college basketball. So just tune in. Make sure you can always go to our app, the Cleveland 19 News app, and get the very latest on stories like the police chief, former police chief. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Have